You've been searching for the best way to generate passive income in your life and heard that real estate is a great way to do it. But you're tired of all the so-called gurus who are all talk and no substance. Get ready to celebrate because Kevin Bupp has spent 14 years successfully making it happen. This is the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Now, here's Kevin Bupp.
Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here again with episode number 5 of the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Today we're going to be speaking with Mike Conlon with Affordable Communities Group. Mike is an affordable housing expert and seasoned mobile home park owner and operator. And in today's show and interview with Mike, you're going to learn the following items. You're going to learn why Mike loves mobile home parks. You're going to learn how he's capitalizing on our down economy by focusing on the affordable housing niche. You're also going to learn the big mistakes he's made along the way and what he's learned from them. How he turned $1.5 million on one deal in just under 15 months. How he was able to build his portfolio to over 2,000 mobile home parks in just over a 10-year period of time. And also why he describes himself as the cash flow guy. But before we get on to the interview with Mike, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my week and also mention a few of the future episodes that we have coming up on the show and what to expect. But this week, I'm actually recording this as I sit in my hotel room in Turks and Caicos. I'm actually with my beautiful wife, Joanna. We're taking a vacation for the week and enjoying ourselves a little bit. So just a little R&R and island time with my wife. But while I'm here, I'm actually I've got involved in a new book that I just picked up about a week and a half ago, and it's something I wanted to share with you guys. It's called The Inside Game to Syndication Wealth, and it's written by Craig Haskell with the Value Hound Academy. And if you want to know how the big boys raise dollars to do big real estate deals, you definitely want to. This is a good starting point. You want to grab this guy. In fact, I think he's offering it for free right now if you go to his website. I think you have to join his website, but it is a free membership. So all you have to do is give your name and email address. And it's valuehoundacademy.com. Again, valuehoundacademy.com. And the book is The Inside Game to Syndication Wealth. And I guarantee that you'll enjoy the book and get a ton of great information out of it. And, again, I'm going to reiterate this on every show. This show is nothing without you listeners, and I really like to cater the show to what you want to hear about. So if there's a particular topic or an expert that you'd like us to get on the show, please shoot me an email to kevin@kevinbupp.com and let me know your thoughts, and I'll do my best to either discuss the topic that you'd like to hear about or try to get that expert on the show that you'd like to hear us interview. And we actually have some awesome shows coming up. I'm going to mention 4 here now. I want to kind of outline the next month for you and what you can expect from our show. Our next interview is going to be with Leonard Spotto, and Leonard's a 1031 expert, 1031 exchange expert, and he's going to teach you how to keep the most dollars in your pocket and minimize your capital gains when selling a property. We're also going to talk to Charlie Dobbins. Charlie's he's an apartment investing expert and also a lawyer by trade, and he's going to teach you how to buy your first apartment and avoid all the expensive mistakes that most new investors make in this business. We're also going to have a discussion with Scott Mayer with Advanta IRA. He's going to teach you how to build a massive real estate portfolio using your self-directed IRA. And then last but not least, we're going to speak with Scott Myers, who is a self-storage expert. He's going to teach you how to create huge streams of cash flow investing in self-storage facilities. But without further ado, guys, I would like to get onto the interview with Mike. I'm going to get back to my island time here and enjoy a little bit of sunshine out by the pool. So I hope you'll enjoy this interview as much as I did speaking with Mike. Hey, guys, like I mentioned today, we're going to be featuring Mike Conlon with Affordable Communities on the show. Mike's got quite the impressive resume. He started out investing in real estate about 15 years ago, shortly after selling a very successful financial planning firm. He currently owns 15, actually slightly more than 15 manufactured home communities, which equates to about 2,900 spaces. So he's an active player in the mobile home community space and owns a ton of properties. He has successfully bought, rehabbed, and sold $50 million worth of multifamily real estate since 2012. He's an absolute expert at sourcing and capitalizing on distressed real estate assets. He's the author of the book Unconventional Wealth, and he also received his law degree from the University of Minnesota years and years ago. So Mike's got he's got a very impressive resume, but I'm sure I didn't do you full justice, Mike. So if you would, please take a few minutes and just tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. I really appreciate it, Kevin. It's funny. I got into real estate by accident. And going back to my career, I did get my law degree way back when, and probably the best decision I ever made was not to practice law. And ended up getting in the financial planning business and did fairly well there. And had a fairly large practice back in the early 2000s and just got burned out with it, working 60, 70 hours a week, making over $250,000 a year, pretty good living. But I got this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad that somebody gave me and opened me up to a couple of different concepts, passive investing and, real estate in general. I'd never owned real estate except for a house, had no concept how it worked. And that was basically almost 12 years ago. And since then, we, started with a little 8 family, and now we got over 3,000 mobile home units. So pretty crazy ride for that period of time.
Wow. So that 8 family, tell us a little bit. I mean, how'd that start? Give us a little overview of that process from the point you went from that 8 family to where you are today.
Yeah, it's funny because, we were up in Wisconsin at the point in time where I'm from originally. And there's not much going on in the multifamily market in Wisconsin. And we just wanted to, I was still doing the financial planning practice, so I wanted to get my feet wet. And we looked around, and there was this little 8-unit. It was all single, 1-bedroom units, and it was called Stanley Court. And it was only $300,000, so it wasn't real expensive. And I realized at that point in time, the bank basically would finance it based on how the property did and the financials there. So what I did is I had my junior partner in the financial planning firm. He really wanted to get out of the financial planning business as well, and he liked being hands-on and doing everything. So we decided to do a split. I'd put up the money. He'd manage the property, sort of an 80-20 split. And we went at it with a little 8-unit family or multifamily property that was really not very nice, barely cash flow, but it was cash flow positive. But it was a great way to learn. And what I always tell people on their first deal, if you can just break even on your first deal, you get a free education because you make every mistake in the book, and that's how you learn.
Okay. So what would you have done differently with that first deal? I mean, obviously it was a learning experience, but I mean, were there mistakes that you made along the way? And what'd you do in that second deal that you learned from the first? Well,
the first deal, even the first couple deals, I wasn't really into distressed and value investing. I just didn't understand that concept. I was more into, steady cash flow, maybe 10% cash on cash, maybe a little bit more with multifamily. We didn't really understand the expenses, how they worked, and especially with a smaller property, you get a water heater that blows out or something, or something major happens, and, there goes your cash flow for the month or for a couple of months. So we just, we sort of bought what was there at the time just to get our feet wet. And I tend to be one that likes to take action. I really encourage people. Sometimes you got to just jump at it and do it. We, understood you wanted to buy things, typically a 9 or 10 cap, but it wasn't distressed by any means, and there was really no upside to the project.
Okay. So unlike most investors that start with single-family homes, I mean, why did you decide to go to the through the multifamily route? A lot of people like getting their feet wet first, doing a house flip or a house wholesale, but you kind of went right for the big leagues and went for that multi-unit right out of the gate. Is there a reasoning behind that?
Well, really, when you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all he talked about was apartments, multifamily stuff. So I never really considered the single-family thing, and it definitely wasn't an asset class back in 2002. And, looking back on it now, I think, the single family is a good way to flip a couple property, do some wholesale deals, whatever it may be, to get some cash. But ultimately, multifamily is definitely where you want to be. And I didn't really know the single family, so I just went straight to the multifamily.
Gotcha. So, there's a lot of other asset classes in commercial real estate. You've got self-storage, you've got shopping centers, you've got office centers. Why multifamily and mobile home parks and not any of the other asset classes? Because I'm sure you can make cash flow and passive income with those as well. Why did you choose to go with multifamily?
Sure. I'm fairly conservative being from the Midwest, and I always looked at something and from the real estate standpoint is what do people need? And affordable housing is something that people need. They're always going to need affordable housing does well when, the economy's booming. It does fantastic when the economy slows down. Mm-hmm. So I looked at the need where the shopping center, it's subject to people's whims and things like that, so it's not always as great. The office product is, it tends to be more institutional. And I think with the technology that was starting in the early 2000s, I saw that as a big risk as people, tending to work from home and things like that. So I went the conservative route and said, I know people need a safe, affordable place to live. I think this is the right way to go.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good point. And our economy is, it looks like some people think we may be on a rebound. I think a little different, and I think there's a huge demand for affordable housing, and it's only going to increase from here on out. So I think you're right with that point. So, I'm sure you've had some victories, you've had some horror stories with owning, this many properties that you've gone through over the past few years. And would you mind sharing with our audience, start with the horror story? I mean, not to scare them, but just to, let's use it as a learning experience. What was that one horror story or those two horror stories where if you could have gone back and done things differently, you would have?
Okay, so my biggest mistake that I made, and actually worked out in the end, but when we decided, we had bought a 24 unit in Wisconsin and things like that, and we decided to get bigger, and we figured Florida at that point in time was the hot spot. This is, early 2003. Mm-hmm. And so we jumped into a 90 unit complex in Florida, and I made every mistake in the book. There were flat roofs, which is a big no-no in Florida because of the rain and the hurricanes. And I thought I didn't spend the money on, a professional due diligence, which only is a couple grand. And the lower level actually was like chicken wire instead of block. So when we had the hurricanes in 2004 and 5, water was going straight sideways through these buildings. But the worst part about that deal is I had agreed to sell it. I had a guy from California who actually paid me more than I purchased for it. Again, it was Florida. Everything was going up, so I sort of got lucky and got bailed out. This was like 18 months after I'd bought it. And he kept pushing me back. And in the meantime, I had already agreed to purchase a property down in Florida and was going to 1031 the money. So I got caught and didn't have the money to do both. And, I had to have a pretty good relationship with the bank, so I was able to float $900,000, which was really scary for me at that point in time. I was way over my head, which was a big mistake to make. But the worst thing, about a week before we were finally going to close, and I got this other property up and running in Fort Myers already, there's a fire in one of the units. I'd never experienced a fire. I walk around the corner and there's smoke billowing out of one of these units. And that was just freaky. And luckily I was able to, clean that unit up. We had to spend a couple grand to get that done. But I think the biggest mistake is I jumped in way over my head in what I could afford. I went from, say, a 24 unit to a 90 unit, and I should have done it more gradually. And it was a scary time. Now, I was lucky I was bailed out in Florida. We ended up selling it for, a couple $100,000 more than we paid for it. So it all worked out in the end. But it was a tough couple months there, no question.
Wow. Yeah, that's scary. I bet you there were a lot of sleepless nights with that property. Sounds like it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that would scare the pants off of most people on this call, but I'm sure you got a victory story that would come and combat that horror story that would make people want to get back out of bed and start going out there and finding more deals. So give me that victory story. Give me that one where you guys just kicked butt.
Yeah, probably one of the best deals. Some of these mobile home parks that we bought, and we'll get into that a little bit, have been really good. But the best apartment deal I did was actually in late 2004. I had sold that other property that I'd just spoken about and bought a property right around Orlando and paid just under $2 million for it. And actually a little bit over $2 million. We put a couple $100,000 into it, did the roofs and stuff like that. We're just going to keep it long-term, had long-term financing on it. And 18 months later, Florida was going out of control with all the property prices. A guy came to me unsolicited and offered me $4.4 million for it. And I was so stupid and naive at the time, I turned it down initially. And a good buddy of mine who's a broker down in Orlando, Enon Winkler, he said, Mike, you got to take this deal. I mean, you got to take the money. There's always going to be another deal. And that was a good lesson for me, too, because I knew I couldn't reinvest in Florida because prices were too high. So I took the deal, needless to say, and it was a giant home run.
All right, great. So you went and turned around and put that money where? You bought more parks?
Actually, we at that point in time in Florida, like 2006 timeframe, somehow I stumbled across a mobile home park. I had no idea what they were, never seen it, and I read something that said, hey, you really should look at parks that are a better deal than apartments. So the last thing we bought in Florida was a little 80-unit park on 4 acres in Lakeland, Florida. Mm-hmm. And my chief operations officer, Chris, who came with me from Wisconsin to Florida and is now with me in North Carolina, he really liked the parks. They're a lot easier to manage, which we'll go through, why I like them versus apartments. But we decided at that point in time we're going to get out of apartments. We couldn't reinvest in Florida, so we ended up going to North Carolina, which is where I'm at now, and 1031 all the money into mobile home parks.
Okay. So mobile home parks, most people on the call probably drive by. I mean, they drive by 3 or 4 on their way to work or on their way to school or wherever they're heading to. And most people are scared. I mean, they don't even think of that as an asset class that they would ever want to invest in. So tell us why you like them so much.
The main reason I like them is that they're a lot easier to manage. And there's 2 things. Number one, it's supply and demand. There have really been no new parks built in the U.S. in the last 15, 20 years. So there's a finite number, so you really have no competition. Whereas, there's a new apartment complex going up every day, it seems like. So that's right. Number one. And number 2, it's just from a management standpoint, you're really renting the dirt if you run it right. Now, I know some people have a strategy in mobile home parks that they like to own all the homes and rent the homes. Mm-hmm. I'm the complete opposite. I want to have all lot renters. You're always going to have some homes you own, just the nature of the business now. But I want to rent the dirt. I want to have a community where people stay, and so you get a lot less turnover than the apartments. And from a maintenance manager standpoint, we don't have any full-time maintenance people. We have contract crews that come in and cut the common areas grass-wise, and they'll do a turn of a house or whatever. But so my expenses tend to run in the 40% to 45% range, where you're probably more 55% for a decently run apartment complex.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, basically what you're saying is the homeowners actually own the trailer or the mobile home. Correct. And they're just renting the dirt from you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you guys have how do you manage this thing? Do you have a live-in on-site manager that goes around and collects rent from these people? Or, the stereotypical image that most people have of mobile home parks is just, kind of the bottom scum of the earth and, people that don't pay their bills. And,
yeah.
How does this work? It just sounds like it would be a complete, management nightmare, but it sounds like you're doing a great job and you're very successful at it. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think guys who have sort of the new leaders and like Frank Rolfe and Dave Reynolds and these guys have really opened everybody's eyes that it's not the old trailer park if you really run it right. I mean, we basically, our philosophy is to have the best product at the best price, which means you got to buy it right in order to have the best price. But we want newly paved roads. We want residents to take care of their house, to paint. If their house is old, we want them to paint them. Keep their skirting up. And we typically have an office at every park. Sometimes it may be, a single wide or a double wide. Otherwise, sometimes it's a fixed or a structure. And we have a manager at every park. Sometimes they live there, sometimes they don't. Just depends on the manager what happens. But every month they come in and pay their rent, and we're all automated. We use Rent Manager as a software system, so it's, live. We can see exactly what's going on rent-wise. We have a scanner at the desk, so we don't take any cash. It's all money orders. And the residents come in, and the manager scans the money order, so the deposit goes right into the bank. We have a security system where you can see everywhere around the park live on the internet. Okay. It's really pretty easy, but you need to be automated, and if you're going to get bigger, to get some of that stuff done.
Sure. And you guys have definitely gotten a lot bigger over the past few years. I mean, you bought a lot of units. I mean, can you kind of walk us through, and I know you typically go for the value add type units or yep. value add type properties. Can you kind of walk us through one of your typical deals and give us an idea of our listeners an idea of how you add value to those deals? Correct.
What I did is I sold a bunch of parks at the end of 2011 because I heard that there was going to be a bunch of distressed mobile home parks on the market, and they did finally come. There was a couple queasy months there where none of the deals came, but finally about mid-2012, a bunch of deals came, and we ended up buying a couple portfolios of distressed parks, a couple thousand spaces. And by distressed, I mean they were poorly managed. The bank had taken them over, And once a bank takes over, they just keep going down further than that. So we bought these things at great prices. But so the occupancy is typically down in the 60 to 65% range. We were quickly able to, get it to 80, 85% by A, just marketing the units, B, having a crew come in and rehab the empty homes that are sitting there. The bank doesn't do any of that stuff. And really creating a community, get a really good manager in there, create a community atmosphere where there's, a spring fling and, Santa comes at, Christmas and some of those things that really make it a community to come around. But we were real fortunate in the timing and the fact that we bought some of these great deals. But most of those deals are a little bit past right now. But the best park you can buy right now, I think the easiest thing is something that's mismanaged and the rents are low, because all you have to do is send out the letter and raise the rents.
Sure. Are there deals out there still like that?
Absolutely.
You feel that? Okay.
Absolutely.
Love this content? Want to avoid the most common mistakes that most investors make when they're looking to get into multifamily investing? Download our free guide to the 7 habits of highly successful multifamily investors by visiting kevinbupp.com/guide today. All right, let's get back to the show.
And when you say you buy these things, this portfolio that you bought that was approximately 60-65% occupancy, and you said you typically just go in and rehab the units that are there. So you're saying that there's trailers, empty trailers or mobile homes that were sitting in this park that they weren't occupied. So it's basically
Correct.
a matter of going in, rehabbing these units, and doing some marketing and getting these things filled and getting paying renters in place. Correct?
Yeah, think about your return on investment in those empty units, and there's going to be anywhere from 10 to 30 empty trailers in some of these deals. That's how distressed they were. And it's going to cost you anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 to get these things in shape. But if you do a lease option deal or rent to own, worst case, you're going to get $500 on the deal. And if you put $5,000 into it and you're getting $500 a month, I mean, you're getting 100% return on your money the first year. So it's a fantastic return. And the other thing I found with these homes, even we bought a couple of parks that are older, there's really no shelf life. You can keep, these homes alive for 40, 50, 60 years if you need be. I like the newer homes and bringing in some newer ones because it adds a lot to the community. Mm-hmm. But, you should not be afraid of these older parks and some of the older homes because they are fixable.
Okay, so you're saying that those old 1960s or 70s metal box trailers, those things will basically last forever if they're taken care of.
Yeah, to some extent, and really you can't replace them anymore because they're so tightly in there. But you definitely can last forever. Now, in an older park like that, you really got to be concerned with the infrastructure. How old are the pipes, and how much money you're going to have to put into that. So that's the con of those older parks. But usually you can buy them pretty cheap.
Have you ever run into a situation with one of your park purchases that was an older park that had infrastructure problems where you've actually had to go in? And I've heard some nightmare stories about that, having to go in and tear up sewer lines and water lines and replace that and, losing homes along the way. And, I mean, have you had any issues like that with any of your past purchases?
Definitely water leaks. We bought a park here in Raleigh that we ended up selling in 2011, but that had the old terracotta pipes and, these tree roots grow right through those pipes. And so you're constantly, getting backups and the pipes are breaking. In the wintertime, they freeze and they break. We actually had a guy, probably worked 20 hours a week, a part-time plumber. We had as a contractor that, we built it into the budget when we bought it. We knew we were going to spend, $1,500 to $2,000 a month on the pipes just because it was that bad of a situation. Wow. Gradually, over a period of 15, 20 years, you're going to replace the whole park basically with pipes just because of the money you're spending. But, we were fortunate we bought it at the right price too and were able to factor that in. But definitely the pipes are an issue. And, no matter what a seller tells you, you're going to have issues with leaks in some of these older parks.
Okay. Well, you mentioned about buying at the right price. And, this podcast is really about investing for passive cash flow, and I know that's your primary strategy with owning these mobile home parks. Can you give us an idea of what you look for in a park in terms of a cash on cash return, or maybe just give us as an example this portfolio that you purchased, what you purchased it at, and kind of where it's at now in terms of value and cash on cash return.
Yeah, there was 2 portfolios that we purchased, and both were ridiculously priced, where we've easily within 12 to 18 months doubled the value of those properties, and that's definitely not the case going forward, I don't think, and unless you can find a couple of those, and there's not many left out there. But a typical deal is, when you go in there and, there's a bunch of trailers where you can get leased up, and you're finding the ability to increase that NOI. So I'm looking at deals at 10 cap or less, or 10 cap or more, excuse me. I don't like anything lower than 10 cap. And the number one rule, it has to cash flow for sure day one. I'm typically looking at 15 to 20% plus cash flows on deals, within the first 12 months. Otherwise, I'm not going to do them. And I'm a cash flow guy totally. I just feel like cash flow will carry you through the bad times. And there's definitely deals out there where you can, even if you buy it at 10% cash on cash, you can get it to 20% within 12 months by fixing up the trailers, passing through the water, submetering the water, passing through that bill, passing through the garbage bill, raise some rents. There's a lot of ways where you can really increase these parks quickly. And one thing I'll mention real quick is I think the deals right now are coming from the generation of people who are in their 70s and have owned these parks for 25, 30 years. Their kids don't want them because they don't understand what a great asset they are, and they're starting to sell these parks. And a lot of times you get seller financing on these deals because they want to, absorb their tax hit on some of the stuff. So great opportunity in that transformation going from the older generation to the younger right now.
That brings up a good point in terms of how do you finance these deals. And you say that a lot of people will hold owner financing. A lot of these older mom and pops that are selling these the deals. I know that a couple of portfolios you purchased were bank owned, but have you actually done deals where the owners have carried back paper for you? Yeah,
I have 3 deals right now that are seller finance deals, and a couple of them are fairly large. One's 400 spaces amongst 3 parks, and he provided 5 years of financing for me. And it was sort of a situation, too, that he knew his park wasn't really ready to be financed. I've done a couple CMBS loans, which are, Wall Street commercial mortgage-backed loans. Those are more difficult. They've got more picky on stuff. I would encourage everybody in their first couple deals to really look for the seller finance stuff if you can. I've been fortunate, too, that I've got a really good relationship with a community bank where I've done, a lot of deals with them, especially the smaller ones, to get going. So if you can develop that type of relationship and once they get comfortable with it, I mean, they're unbelievable cash flow deals, and the banks love them because they know they're always going to get paid. But, financing is a difficult thing in the business, and that the positive thing is you can really push some of these sellers to get seller financing for you.
Are there any pitfalls to avoid with seller financing? I mean, are there any things that you should be aware of with going into a seller financing deal?
Usually you can, dictate the terms fairly well. It's anywhere from 5 to 6% in 20-year AM to 30-year AM. The key is the balloon date. I'll never do less than 5. I want 5 years to be able to fix up the park. So you really need to understand, what your plan is. A lot of things, we're converting rentals into owners over that period of time and things like that. And obviously, the longer you can get, I like 10 years because then, you have a balloon at the end of 10 years, but you got a strong track record if you want to bring it to CMBS or whatever it may be. But you just need to have a plan going in, but it's definitely the best way to go your first couple of years.
Okay. So what is with you? I mean, you've definitely bought a ton of parks over the past couple of years, and you're cash flowing like a king, I'm sure. Yep. What's your exit strategy? I mean, do you plan on holding these things? I mean, there's a barrier to enter with mobile home parks because there's hardly any that have been built over the past 10, 15 years. So, and they're only going away because developers are buying them for higher and better use, tearing them down. So is your strategy to hold these things for a long term, or, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think definitely because we bought them so cheap and the cash flow is so good that there's no way I could replace that cash flow. So our strategy is definitely buy and hold at this stage. When I started out, I was more about, I didn't really understand the value side of it a little bit. I thought I was going to buy and hold forever. But looking back on it, I would definitely encourage people, whether they start in single family or small multifamily, is to sell your way up. So you own it for a couple of years, fix it up, sell it, make a pop on it, buy a bigger thing. I tell people in the mobile home park business, all you need is 100 space park. should cash flow anywhere from, on the low side, $6,000 a month net to $8,000 a month net. I mean, do you really need much more than that if you can get $100,000 coming in? I mean, it's a pretty good deal.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure most people on the call would be very happy with, walking away with $100,000 a year with one property. So
absolutely. And
definitely nothing to shy away at.
You may have to sell your way up where you start with a 25 unit and get into a 50 and, move your way up. That's what I did. Look, I didn't really do it by strategy. It just sort of happened for me, but I would definitely recommend people do that because if you can get into 100 plus spaces, that's where, the real money is made. So, I would encourage people to try to get to that level. Even if it takes you 5-10 years, it doesn't make a difference.
Okay. So real quick, just to touch one more thing on in terms of financing, we talked about seller financing, we talked about bank financing. How are you doing these bigger deals? Obviously, I don't know if maybe you're getting banks to finance these large portfolio deals, or I know the owner, the bank themselves aren't carrying financing back, but how have you done these big deals? What have you done to pull the money together?
On two things. Number one, again, I've had a good relationship with the community bank. That's helped. I just completed a CMBS deal actually yesterday on some of the properties that I've just refinanced that I bought last year, which is a good thing.
Gotcha.
But really what everybody needs to consider, and there's a couple of different courses out there, you got to go out and raise some money. I was fortunate that I've been able to use most of my money. I'm a little bit different than other people where I own at least 70% of every one of my deals.
Okay.
A lot of guys own, 25% of a deal. They become syndicators more so, and obviously you can get more units that way. But you really need to network and find people have investments. And right now it's so easy. I mean, people are throwing millions of dollars at me that, the deals just aren't there to do it. And you got to worry about, PPM, private placement, memorandum, and stuff like that. It's, beyond this call, obviously, but
sure.
To find people who investors.
You get the SEC involved, and the game changes a little bit.
Correct. Yeah, and I happen the first, actually even up to now, I have 3 or 4 investors that I've known my whole life, good buddies of mine, and really, you pay them 10%. They're so happy. They're so excited. You'll get money all day long. I mean, they get nothing in a checking account. Stock market's up and down. It's a great time to do it. It's tougher initially because you don't have a track record, so you really got to go to friends and family if at all possible. But once you get a track record, the sky's the limit.
So that's it. Go out there and just get a deal done, whatever that means. Get your first deal done, get a track record, make it happen, and create a name for yourself. And at that point in time, once you start doing a couple deals here and there, however you have to pull the money together, there will be investors coming out of the woodwork, probably throwing money at you, trying to get 10% on their money because they want it safe and secure and they want it tied up in real estate.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One thing I would caution people at real quick though is that you don't want to overpay. You make your money at the purchase in real estate, so really understand. I mean, I really think Frank and Dave have done a great job with their boot camps because it really forces people to think. You don't want to jump into anything. You got to really be conscious of price in that first deal.
Right. Absolutely. Well, buying at the right price, that brings up a point of how do you find these deals? I mean, right now in today's market, what is the best way? How are you guys finding deals? I mean, is it brokers? Are you doing direct mail campaigns? Is it just word of mouth? What are you seeing?
Right now it's mostly brokers, and we're getting mostly off-market deals, in North Carolina, South Carolina, sort of our area. We've gotten to know the brokers, and they typically give us a first call. I always find if it's at LoopNet or, it's at Mobile Home Park Store, you got to be a little bit leery because a lot of guys have probably looked at it already. So, if you can get a really good relationship with these brokers, and multiple brokers and try to, get the deals before they hit the market, that's where you can get the advantage. The other thing is in North Carolina, we know a lot of the owners now, so we'll get calls. And again, I know Dave Reynolds has done a great job of doing postcards forever. And, he did them all over the Midwest, and that's a great way to get in front of these 70, year-old plus people and develop a relationship with them and try to get, some seller financing or get a deal done. Because, again, I think it's going to be more of a one-off type deal where you find the portfolios are a little bit through the system already, the distressed stuff, so you're going to have to go sort of one by one now.
Okay. Well, Mike, you've recently written a book And there's a free copy that listeners can go grab on your website, Main Street Millionaire. Can you tell us a little bit about the book? Where your desire to write it came from, and a little bit of what's inside.
Sure. I wrote the book more for educational purposes than anything else, and because of my financial planning background, it's really more of a personal finance book with a bent towards real estate. But I have very distinct views on the way the world is right now, and unfortunately, my biggest theme through the book is that the number of have-nots, as I call them, in this country is just growing rapidly by the day. It's sad, all these policies that, were really beyond our control. It's, at least 50% of the country is living paycheck to paycheck. It's going higher than that. It's going to become an 80-20 world where 20% of the people, have a chance in America and 80% don't. It's a bad thing, globally, but for the mobile home park business or the pawn shop business or the buy here, pay here car business, it's phenomenal. Affordable housing is going through the roof right now. They're not building any more of it. The parks are really the only option for a lot of people. So if you can focus on that type of business, you're going to, hit the jackpot, in my opinion, over the next 10, 15 years.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Well, Mike, you've shared a ton of great information with us today, and if I could ask you just one thing, if there was one piece of wisdom that you could leave with our listeners today that may help inspire them to get off their butts and get out there and get their first deal done or get their 10th deal done, whatever phase they are in their investing career, what would that one piece of advice be?
I think the biggest thing, and Rich Dad Poor Dad talks about it all the time, is you got to take action. You got to get over your fear of whatever that fear may be, and you just sort of got to go for it. And that's been a 10-year process for me, from doing a 90-unit deal to now having 3,000 units, and what's good debt and bad debt. But you got to just take the risk. If you never take the risk, you're never going to get it done. And in my feeling, you're going to beat 95% of the people in the country just by taking that risk, because most people will never take a risk.
Right. Very true. Very true. Well, Mike, we really appreciate your time today. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you're a busy man. You're out there buying tons of properties, but we really appreciate it. And to find out more about Mike and the resources that he provides, please go visit his website. It's mainstreetmillionaire.com. Again, mainstreetmillionaire.com. And that's it. And Mike, again, we appreciate your time, and you take care and have a great week.
Hey, appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, that's it for this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Mike. He shared a ton of great content, and I hope you go out there and put some of that great content into action. And before we go, I'd like to give a shout out to Reggie from Columbus, Ohio, for downloading the free guide that we offer on our website, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful Multifamily Investors. You can download your own free guide by going to kevinbupp.com/guide. And this free guide will provide you with the 7 habits that I believe that every real estate investor needs to learn to live by in order to become a successful multifamily real estate investor. And one more thing, guys, this show is nothing without you, the listeners. I know I say that multiple times, but it's the truth. And I wouldn't be here today recording this if it wasn't for you guys. But in order to help us grow and in order to help this community build larger and larger, I need feedback and I need reviews on iTunes. I would love to ask you the favor just to take a minute of your time and go give me 5 stars and leave a quick review on iTunes. That really helps us build the community, and it helps us get great experts on the show. So please go do that. And one last thing. On my website, you can go to kevinbupp.com, and I created this just for you guys. It's basically a free way to get any real estate questions answered by me personally. If you're new to the business, if you're a seasoned investor, but you're stumped with something, you have a question, whether it's a general question or a detailed question with regards to real estate investing, what I want you to do is I want you to send me a voicemail. And how you're going to do that is go to kevinbupp.com, and on the right-hand side, there's a red button that says leave voicemail, and click on that, and it'll allow you to actually record a voicemail directly from your computer, and it will come to my email box, and I'll either respond to you directly in person, or if it's something that's worthy of sharing on the show, I'll share it on one of the future episodes and answer your question live. And that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for listening, and as always, go make some cash flow happen.
Congratulations! Now you've got more of the best tricks of the trade in building massive amounts of passive income from real estate. For more amazing resources, visit realestateinvestingforcashflow.com. And we'll see you next Monday morning.